Welcome, everybody. It's Monday, August 14th. John Aravosis here. I'll come to you live from the Aravosis Report. Thank you, Laka. I just saw that. Oh, thank you, Laka. That's sweet. Thank you for that. Anyway, welcome, guys. I am here in Chicago, getting my stuff still set up for you all. Coming to you live, normally Washington, D.C., this time Chicago, Illinois, for the Aravosis Report, my nightly show Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get set up here. I'm actually still playing with the lighting and stuff. Hang on. Traveling here, so I have to get my lighting maybe a little stronger here. Good enough. Good enough. Is that my... Oh, it's probably stronger than I need. All right, sorry. These are the things you have to do when you do a show. You have to worry about lighting and things. Anyway, welcome, everybody. I'm going to get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. All right, TikTok, go live. Boom. And introduce yourselves, as always. And then we'll wait a couple minutes for the show to start just for people to arrive. All right, TikTok. Hopefully this is working well. Boom. All right, excellent. Anyway, hello, all. Yes, I'm in Chicago for the month. So thank you. The wood paneling is back. Woo-woo. Hey, 70s lives on, folks. Anyway, welcome, everybody. I've got my obligatory glass of water. Mom is doing well. Thanks for asking. Hobbling around as best she can, you know. Anyway, but no, things are good. My dog's doing well. She's under the table right now, sleeping alone. Hey, Jillian. Oh, anyway, welcome, everybody. As I said, I'm in Chicago now for the month, so just getting set up with, like, it always takes me a show or two to get used to sort of doing this, you know, because it's like a different setup, different microphone, different plug. I mean, everything's different when I'm here than in DC. So it always takes me a little bit of time to kind of feel like whatever. Hey, Elizabeth, even the microphone, like having the DC microphone is kind of fun to be able to grab it. I do have a mic here. And then for TikTok, I got the mic here. Anyway, we're going to take about another minute or so for folks to join us, and then we will get rolling. Anyway, woo. Thank you. Who is that? Oh, Elizabeth for the hearts. Thank you. Thank you, PPP. Reports that Russia lost 3 T-90s. Oh, I did not see that. No, what was that report from? These are Russia's like new fabulous tanks that a lot of people weren't convinced were fabulous. Thank you, Olga. Or should I say Jaku, perhaps, if your name's Olga? But what's the, thank you, Greg. It was Adam. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, well, I didn't see them on the T-90s. That's really interesting. Hey, LinkedIn user. Doesn't have a name for you, but I'll say hello anyway. And who was that? Ava, I think. I think that was Ava. Yeah, it was Ava. And John, thank you, guys. Anyway, you are very welcome. Well, I should be, again, I thank you. But you know, yes. Oh, hey, Andrew in Taiwan. That's always fun. But you're not drink guy, are you? I don't have my glasses on right now to see. Maybe no. You're not drink guy. That would be funny if you were. I don't think you are. Oh, thank you for the wait, who was that really quick? Thank you for the gift there as well. Sorry. No, you're not him, are you? Oh, no, you're not. I don't think you are. There's a drink guy who often is in China who does wonderful, like, mixed drinks on TikTok, and they're always fun. And he also critiques the other people because they don't know what they're doing. He's like a business guy. Hey, out on my, hello, guys. Sorry about that. Being a little funky, or thank you. Who's that? Pam. Thank you, Pam, for that. All right, guys. Yeah, my internet should be okay. It just glitched a minute ago. Hopefully it's back. All right, let me get rolling. Welcome, everybody. So the way the show works, thank you, Jar. I am coming to you from Chicago this week. Normally I come from Washington, D.C. I'm from here, actually, Chicago, but normally I'm based in Washington, D.C. And the way the show works is I cover the war in Ukraine and I give you guys the latest news. Thank you, Tomcat. Try to pick sort of the news I think matters, explain why I think it matters, and then we take your questions, right? Take your questions. The way we do that is Second half of the show are questions, but anybody who wants to support my work, if you're on YouTube, there's really no that TikTok ought to come up with this way, actually. But on YouTube, you can pay for questions as a way of making a donation. And as a thank you, I will always get to those questions immediately. They're called Super Chat questions, and you access them by hitting the $sign at the bottom of your screen. Thank you, Carol. So if you do those, I will always get to those first. Or in Laka's case, he did it as a very nice, sweet donation in honor of my mom's dog who died last week. So thank you, Laka, for that. Otherwise, thank you, Jetta Mom. So gifts in general, thank you, Pam. I'm always very happy for the gifts and always sort of welcome them from you guys because I do this full time. I've been doing the show since the war broke out. And because I do it full time, this is my income. This is how I make a living now, is covering the news. And frankly, it's your guys' donations that make it possible for me to do that. So thank you very much for that. Please do keep the gifts coming, and I will always try to do a shout out as well on TikTok when I see the gifts pop up there too. Yeah, I know, very sad. She was kind of a trip. Maybe I'll show some more photos of her at the end. Thank you, Jake, for that. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So excuse me, today is day 536 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Thank you, Mark. I have to laugh at this. Thank you, Jake, again. Really interesting. So the reason I sort of laugh at this, and exactly, and thank you, PPP for the super sticker. Thank you, Jake, again. You're being very, very sweet there. I have to laugh because, okay, we're almost a year and a half into the war, okay? Actually, we are a year and a half into the war. I think come the 24th of this month. So we're 10 days away from a year and a half into the war, if I'm counting correctly. And Russia's defense minister says today that Russian weapons are beginning to show their effectiveness in Ukraine. If they were in a democracy, that guy would be out of a job. Actually, Putin would too. Imagine a year and a half into a war, you tell the public, our weapons are finally beginning to show some effectiveness. People would say, I mean, literally, it's day 536 of this war, beginning to show effectiveness. They haven't been showing effectiveness until now. And you seem very proud of yourself that your weapons, thank you, Arifa, that your weapons are beginning to show effectiveness a year and a half into the war, right? It's insane, but it's anyway, I just wanted to bring it up because it always kind of cracks me up from where they're coming from. Kirch Bridge update. So very interesting. So the Kirch Bridge, we're using, as I just threw my pen across the room, we're using the Chicago version of the map that is red, the t-shirt map. I have to tighten this one up a little too. So the Kirch Bridge is the bridge all the way down here in southern Ukraine that connects southern Ukraine to Russia. Putin controls all of this. Thank you, CK. Putin controls all of this of Ukraine, right? These are all the occupied territories. And he built a bridge here to connect Crimea here to Russia, which actually starts right here and then goes up here and down here. So the bridge is Putin's pride and joy. And the Ukrainians have been hitting that bridge repeatedly. Well, sorry, thank you. I'm going to pull up CK's here as well. Thank you for Annie's. I thought it was CK's. Thank you, Annie. I'm sorry. It flew by so quickly. I didn't see it. The Ukrainians have been hitting the bridge repeatedly. They hit it again this weekend. I actually had missed this. I read this morning. They hit it again this weekend. And as of at least one report I saw, and again, I think this isn't 100%, but according to one report I saw that posted satellite images, it looks like the rail connection across the bridge might be down, and the Russians may be trying to fix it. Thank you, Ellie. That would be a big deal because the Kirch Bridge is, and Zelensky said this a few weeks ago. Oops, I'm showing you my notes. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the map. The Kirch Bridge is the main supply line for Russia. Thank you, Ellie. The main supply line for Russia, going in and supplying certainly this half of the occupation. The Russians are also occupying up here. This is Russia bordering here. So for a lot of these supplies, they can get it from here. But for these guys here, they go across the Kirch Bridge. So knocking out that bridge is a top priority for the Ukrainians. They did a few weeks ago knock out at least two of the roads. There's what do you call it? I keep forgetting, planks or whatever you call them in the bridge, like pieces of cement that you put down. Well, one big plank of bridge has 2 lanes of traffic going one way. The other big plank of cement has 2 lanes of traffic going the other way. And what the Ukrainians did is they got one of the spans. Thank you, Space Boss. It's span. One of the spans of bridge got knocked off its support. So the Russians are having to rebuild it. So they've had to put all 4 lanes of traffic onto 2 lanes now. So instead of it being 2 lanes one way and 2 lanes the other, it's now 1 lane and 1 lane, which slows things down significantly. And I believe they're still doing this. They're limiting it to cars and not trucks, which is not slowing down. It's cutting back on a lot of the transport they can do. Well, what's the other way they transport? They can ship things by boat, but what happens by boat? The Ukrainians have shown again lately they're very good at blowing up Russian ships using Ukrainian drones and using Ukrainian cruise missiles that they created on their own. So the boats, the Russians aren't too sure they want to use that. Thank you, Kevin. And the other way they do it is there's a rail crossing as well on the same bridge. So you've got the 2 spans going, or 2 different spans, 2 lanes that way, 2 lanes this way, and then a rail crossing, or like probably 2 pieces of rail track. So the railroad goes one way in the east and one way west. That's what looks like it's damaged from the most recent satellite photos. That would be great news because, again, it just slows down so much of the Russian resupply and supply. Food and water for the troops, ammunition for the troops, weapons for the troops, oil to fuel their oil and diesel fuel, whatever they use to fuel their tanks and their vehicles. So big deal across the board hitting that bridge. Thank you, Elizabeth and Pam. So as far as saying here, sorry. Oh, Steven's asking for the red map. Exactly. Okay, here you go, Steven. The red map. Yes, I always feel like this is my Star Trek map because it's like the red shirt. Although the red shirt has a bad connotation with Star Trek. Any of you who know, but actually, when I'm wearing my red shirt today, so actually I'm pretty much it's a red day here at the Aravosis household. All right, thank you for that, Steven, and thank you for that, Addie. So let's talk a little bit about the counteroffensive. So actually, I'm going to pull the map up again. One of these days, I'm going to buy an easel. But honestly, I feel like the easel thing will just get in the way. It's like one more thing to have lying around the house. And I've already made enough of a mess at my mom's house of like everything else hanging out. But the counteroffensive, okay, Ukraine's counteroffensive has been focused mostly around here, Zaporizhia, and here, Donetsk, okay? Now, the idea overall, and again, remember, all of this controlled by Russia. The idea overall, thank you, Jason, one of the big early goals that Ukraine is going to have here, okay? Thank you, Lincoln. Don't want to get into a Star Trek debate right now, but thank you on TikTok. One of the Ukraine's sort of immediate goals is to come all the way down here to Melitopol and or come all the way down here to Mariupol. What that does is they will cut the Russian occupation in half, either here or in here. And what it'll do is separate this part of the occupation from this part or this part from this part and make it much harder for the Russians to resupply this region in particular, because here's what you do. You cut this off here. This region now is 100% dependent on the bridge, and then you make sure you blow that bridge to smithereens. So now these guys in Crimea and Kherson, Crimea is really the crown jewel. I mean, the Ukrainians want everything back, but they really want Crimea back. You isolate these two, and then they're in serious trouble. Thank you, Vicky. So Ukraine has been fighting in a lot of places, but Ukraine's big goal for the counteroffensive has been really fighting around here. Recently, last couple of weeks, last week especially, I'd say, we've been hearing a lot about Kherson over here. Thank you, Martin. We've been hearing a lot about Kherson over here. This is the region that had the flood, right? That then the dam broke. Well, the dam broke. The Russians basically broke the dam. Thank you, LWD. You guys are very gifty today. I appreciate this. Thank you. So I want to make sure I'm not like missing anybody. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. I want to make sure I hadn't missed anybody on the super chats or the super questions. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're all being very gifty. I like this. Thank you. So here's what's going on. Okay. Ukraine is making tactically significant advances in Western Zaporizhia. That's over here. This is from the Institute for the Study of War. Very good defense think tank based in Washington, D.C. I rely on them. A lot of folks do. They're very trustworthy. Thank you, Adventures. And they tell you when Ukraine isn't doing well. They tell you when Ukraine is doing well. They say that Ukraine made, quote, tactically significant advances in this region. What is interesting about here, overall, but here especially, the Russians are now worried. I was also reading some intercepted communications of the Russians today showing that they're worried about what's going on here with Ukraine. Ukraine's been having some success. They've still got a ways to go because they've got a lot of minefields and stuff like that. But what this is doing now, the Russians are so worried that they're having to basically reallocate men from the rest of their battles. Now, Russia is fighting up here by choice. Russia is trying to have a battle up here at Kupiansk. They're fighting Ukraine here at Bakhmut. They're fighting here. They're fighting here. And as I said, they're fighting at Kherson as well. Russia's got troops spread throughout. And unlike Ukraine, thank you, Bash, unlike Ukraine, Russia doesn't have any troops to spare. Ukraine does. Thank you, user2119. Ukraine has got, I think that the number I saw recently was Ukraine's maybe using 1/3 of its reserves. Thank you, Jake, for the hat. They're maybe using 1/3 of the reserves. And when I say reserves, I mean the troops that Ukraine prepared for the big counteroffensive. Thanks again, Jake. They've used about 1/3 of them. They've got 1/3 of them, 2/3 of them left that are still not fighting. They're trained, rested, ready to go. All the equipment they need. Thank you, Jake. The Russians have 0 reserves. Everyone fighting on the Russian side is now fighting. So the Russians are starting to get particularly worried about here in Zaporizhia. Thank you, Jake. Here in Zaporizhia. So what are they going to do? They've got to move troops from the other regions. So now the Russians, they have multiple problems here. Thank you, Too Old, for the hat. Multiple problems. If the Russians have to move troops here, they've got to move it somewhere where their troops are already fighting. So where do you pull? In other words, they've got to hurt a battle elsewhere. Thank you, Jake. In other words, do they take troops from here, which makes it easier for the Ukrainians to keep the attack going? Do they take troops from here, helping the Ukrainians? Do they take troops from Bakhmut? Do they take troops from Kupiansk? Wherever they take the troops from, the Russians will be weaker in that location. Thank you, Ernie, helping the Ukrainians. Second big problem, it makes the Russians more exhausted. If you're taking troops that are not rested, troops that are already fighting elsewhere, and moving them into an even worse area, these guys who are already tired are now fighting somewhere that's even harder. They're going to get even more tired. So it's really great on a number of levels in terms of weakening. Actually, I think what Institute for the Study of War said is it will weaken the entire Russian defensive line, because basically they're weakening these areas by removing troops, and they're still weakening this area because they're putting weak troops in there who can't fight very well. So it's good across the board. I mean, let's not be fooled. As I said, this is going to, thank you, Jake. This is going to take a while. I think we're going to have ups and downs in terms of what we hear about Ukraine and how it's going. This was at least good news this weekend. Good to hear the Ukrainians advancing, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of deaths and injuries. We're probably not going to hear about most of them because it's not in Ukraine's interest to broadcast, how many troops are injured or killed, obviously. But, this is not going to be easy for them. But at least this was positive what we heard today. Let me see here. Bakhmut. I'm not going to really have, there's really not much. Actually, let me read this to you. This was interesting. This was from Institute for the Study of Wars. Again, that defense think tank I mentioned to you guys. Pro-war bloggers, Russian bloggers, okay? Pro-war Russian bloggers who have the inside track on what's going on the Russian side. So a lot of what they say is very interesting to pay attention to. See Ukraine's gains in that, especially in Zaporizhia. Thank you. Who is that? Oh, Positively for the dog, and Lee's for the heart. Thank you. And yeah, Positively. Thanks for the dog. Pro-war Russian bloggers see Ukrainian gains as proof of flagging Russian morale, and personnel failures after Ukrainian troops made gains in East. Oh, this was in Eastern Ukraine. Oh, this is actually good. I'm sorry. I thought this was in the West. What I just read you was the pro-Russian military bloggers who have the inside track on what's going on the Russian side say that the reason the Ukrainians are doing better, thank you, Cheryl, is because of poor morale on the Russian side and personnel failures, problems with their personnel system. What's interesting is they're talking about the battle over here in the east by Donetsk. So they're not talking about right here by Zaporizhia. The one I was telling you has been I think probably the best news, I think, is coming here from Zaporizhia right now. They're talking about here a little bit further to the east, the other battle. The fact that that's the battle the Russians are pointing to and saying, that battle's not going well. And the reason it's not going well is because our troops, the morale sucks among our troops. Again, it's all little bits of intelligence, little pieces of information that you kind of try to weave into a larger picture. Thank you, Mark. But the larger picture is this is really hard for Ukraine. They're advancing slowly, but the Russians ain't doing so well either. And that's really good news, because I think a lot of times what we focus on, at least in our heads, is how are the Ukrainians doing? How are they doing? Do they have enough weapons? And the Russians are in the same boat, though. They've got to worry about their troops too. So the ships. Okay. So Russia yesterday, I think it was yesterday, stopped a Turkish ship that was coming to, I believe it was the Danube, which is the river, it was the Danube, actually. Thank you, Elizabeth. The river separating Ukraine from Romania. This was the area that the Russians bombed last week or in the last 2 weeks a couple times. And remember, they got like within a couple hundred feet or a couple hundred meters of Romanian territory, which is NATO. And we talked about how dangerous it was. Well, the Russians have claimed they're going to stop all ships coming to Ukraine to check for weapons, this kind of contraband, whatever that means, and possibly shoot them. Right? We don't know. Well, yesterday, Russia tried to stop a Turkish ship. They demanded they stop. Reportedly, the Turkish ship kind of said, like they wouldn't stop. So the Russians opened fire, but didn't open fire at the ship. They fired across the path of the boat to basically say, okay, stop. Well, that got the ship's attention. They stopped. The Russians came on board for an hour. They found nothing. Reportedly, they were pleased to see that the Turkish crew was Turkish, basically, that the whole crew was made up of Turks. Thank you, Sharon and Timothy there. Kind of interesting there as well. And they went on their way. It took about an hour. The ship is now either heading to or in Ismail, which is a Ukrainian port that the Russians have bombed previously on the Danube, on the river there we talked about, right? Thank you, Sharon. Typically, thank you, Paolo. Good to see you. Typically, the ship would pick up, grain from that port at Ismail, and possibly then head out again into the Black Sea. What will be interesting to see is, what do the Russians do? Do they stop the ship again? Do they confiscate it? Do they let the grain go? Right? What do they do? Because currently it's kind of interesting. The thinking is that the Russians are trying to chill commerce, so to speak. Thank you, Sunshine. In other words, by stopping the ship and inspecting it, they want to, and saying, we're not going to confiscate you this time, kind of thing, right? To make basically all the business people say, is it really worth shipping to Ukraine? All the insurance people say, oh boy, this is risky. Thank you, Sean. And say, we've got to raise insurance rates. Buyers of grain maybe say it's right. People who own the ship saying it's not worth it. Thank you, Marcy. People buying the grain saying it's not worth it. They're just trying to raise the cost in everyone's minds and say, oh boy, this Russian thing is really dangerous. The problem for the Russians is it's a little bit of a bluff in some ways. Thank you, Chief, because the Russians themselves are afraid, we think, to implement this embargo completely, because the Ukrainians have been doing a really good job hitting Russian ships, right? We know the Ukrainians have a cruise missile they built themselves called the Neptune that they used to sink the Moskva, which was the ship they sank the April of last year, probably 6 weeks into the war. That's the Russian warship Go F Yourself boat. Remember the ship? Thank you, Anne, for the gift there, the super sticker. So we know the Ukrainians have the ability to sink the ships. We know their drones, their drone boats and drone, aviation drones have been quite effective. They recently blew up or at least caused damage to by blowing up a transport ship, for cargo ship, and a Russian warship last week or 2 weeks ago, and caused significant damage. The warship may not be fixed for a very long time, and even the cargo ship, they were able to blow it up near the engine room, which causes even more damage. Anyway, what this means is, it is thinking that the Russians may not want to, and they may not be able to enforce an actual embargo of the Ukrainian ships, because it would take so many boats, and the boats, thank you, Trelitic, would have to be near Ukrainian territory, and they'd be blown up by the Ukrainians. So there's going to be a little bit of an issue here of the Russians. I say bluff in the sense that they're trying to look scary enough that they scare boats away. It's an interesting question as to whether Russia will actually fire on a ship or sink a ship. My guess would be, if I were Russia, I would be very worried that if you start to hit ships from third countries, the US and NATO are going to do something about it. Look what's happening in the Persian Gulf right now, okay? The the Iranians have been threatening to hit oil tankers, maybe ships in general, but oil tankers going through the Straits of Hormuz. The US, I believe the US is now escorting them, or at least announced a plan to escort them. Pretty sure from what I'd read. I'm not paying a lot of attention there, but paying more to you guys. But this is something that the US had done previously, decades ago, that we did. I believe we even reflagged ships with American flags to protect them. By doing this in the Straits of Hormuz with Iran, we are subtly sending a message to Russia saying, this is what we're capable of doing. If I were Russia, I would at least be worried that if I do blow up some tankers going to Ukraine, there's a danger of NATO or the Americans. Personally, I have a hard time believing NATO is going to have the backbone to do that, right? Meaning, I think Biden would, there'd be no way in hell Biden would do that. I would hope he would. But if I were Russia, you can't guarantee Biden wouldn't, you know? So let's see. Anyway, very interesting. Let me do a quick pitch on supporting my work and then a few more stories to give you guys. Hang on, sip of water. So one of the ways you guys can support me, which I mentioned before, is doing memberships. Now, you can do memberships on a number of different services. Basically, a membership is simply becoming a monthly member, a monthly subscriber, where you give me a donation every month, and it's set through a system. You know, you can do it through things like Patreon, which I do have. Thank you, Rick. Patreon's been problematic, though, for helping Ukraine creators. So I've been pushing more other services. For example, for the YouTube folks, there are YouTube memberships, YouTube subscribers. You guys will see a number of the folks in the comments who have green names. Their name is turned green, like Greg. You know, you'll see Carol some of these days. Annie is there. Anne, Susan, a bunch of different folks, right? The folks you see in green are the monthly subscribers. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, give a little hand for Greg, who's weighing in right there. And you guys can subscribe by hitting the dollar symbol at the bottom of the comments on YouTube. Click it, opens up a little window, super chat, super stickers, memberships. Click memberships, and you can see the membership levels. It's a way of supporting me monthly, and you get some other benefits in my Discord. We'll talk about that later. A little weekend show, I do things like that. For you guys on TikTok, easiest way is to become a TikTok subscriber via TikTok directly. Thank you, Sharon. You can do that on the screen right here. I'm not sure. The mods can tell you. It should be easy to figure out. I don't know how to do it. Thank you, Dawn. That looks like a Barbie set. Very topical. Thank you for that, Dawn. So you guys can do it for TikTok subscribers. The other way for anybody on TikTok or YouTube or elsewhere is you can do it via Ko-fi. Ko-fi is on the screen for you guys there. For you guys, you can find Ko-fi via, it's a website called Ko-fi, like coffee, Ko-fi. You can find it on TikTok in my profile. Click the Linktree link. Thank you, Sharon. Click the Linktree link in my profile. Click it. First thing that comes up is Ko-fi. Click it, and you're there. It's ko-fi.com/Aravosis, my last name. What Ko-fi lets you do is the same thing. You sign up monthly, blah, blah, very simple. Then, and I'll later in the show explain, there are the added benefits. It gives you membership on my Discord, this kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that later. But bottom line is, it's a way of supporting me with a monthly donation. Helps me out a lot because I actually get to know how much money's coming in and can predict it. And eventually, if I can get enough subscriptions, I don't have to bother you guys anymore, which would be my gift. Thank you, Trollitic. But also, like what Trollitic just did, the gifts are very helpful too. Please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and the gifts on YouTube as well, and Twitch and everywhere else too. Thank you, guys. All right, let me get rolling again. All right, and there's Anne. Thank you, Anne, for the super sticker. All right, so Russia in the last couple of days has been being a real pain. They're playing games with NATO airspace. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you right now, it just doesn't matter. They're hoping to scare you. They're hoping, because I said they did this. Oh, thank you, Red Watts. They did this. Scotland, Denmark, Norway. I think Norway. Norway. They went after some Norwegian planes, and Alaska. I think today. Thank you, Randy. And basically, they put their planes sort of in international airspace, but kind of getting uncomfortably close to our countries. Thank you, Addie. Knowing that we then have to launch our planes to intercept them and escort them to make sure they're not doing anything bad, right? What they're hoping to do is just scare people. They want, and by the way, this is also why Russia does when they knocked our drone out of the sky. In Syria, you'll see the Russians doing all sorts of things that are incredibly dangerous in terms of flying way too close to our planes. Remember, we saw it with the drones, but they've also done it with our planes as well. Russia is intentionally trying to do things that are dangerous. Actually, remember they did this with Polish planes, some Polish NATO planes. Thank you, Sharon, a couple months ago. And again, we're doing really dangerous maneuvers around the Polish planes in the Black Sea. Was it the Black Sea? I'm not remembering where the Polish planes were flying, but really dangerous moves with the Polish planes. And that's a funny question. I'll get to that in a second. They're trying to scare Biden. They're trying to scare the French president. They're trying to scare the German chancellor, and they're trying to scare just you guys in general. And frankly, give some ammunition to the anti-Ukraine forces in our country, whether it's the kind of extreme MAGA folks who are against Ukraine, or Fox News, or the extreme left as well, because we've got the sort of really crazy extreme left that is also being very pro-Putin in this regard. So honestly, I would say disregard it. When you hear, the reason I'm bringing it up is just to tell you guys, it doesn't matter. Our planes can kick their planes, and they know that. They're doing this just to create news stories that maybe scare people and maybe make people go, oh, it's all getting too dangerous. In the end, they do something and our planes will kick their butts. I mean, I don't want them to, but I know they can. So yeah, don't worry about it. So Bash Brannigan had a funny question. Thank you, Marcy. Is Ukraine using 3D printers to create weapons? I don't know. That's a Vlad question for my friend Vlad. I don't know. I'm also not sure whether it would be, okay, Sally is saying they're certainly using 3D printed parts with other devices such as drones. That I would believe, yes. Because what we've seen is, thank you, Pam Pam, one of the things Ukrainians have been really good at is early in the war, we saw this. They were using drones to drop grenades and things, and they were making these makeshift like devices with their drones with like a part hanging down and how you would tell it to open the part to drop the grenade and things like that. So they actually, that's funny. Brady is saying I watched a full video on it. Yeah. So they can do stuff like that. The grenade mounts. Oh, there you go. Callum says the grenade mounts on the drones are 3D printed. I was guessing that was probably true. Very interesting. Whether they're doing actual weapons, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether they need that. I don't know whether they need that. We do have something. Well, it depends what you mean by Colin on the stats. Sorry, Colin was asking, do we have stats on people living in Crimea or leaving Crimea? Well, we do in a sense. I don't want to get into too many questions yet because I got a little more news to tell you. But we know that Crimea had around, thank you, Trilytic, around 2 million people before the war, 2014, right? Russia invades in 2014. After Russia invades and takes over and claims it's part of Russia, 1 million Ukrainians leave because they don't want to live under Russian occupation, obviously, right? Who wants to live under a Russian dictatorship? The 1 million Ukrainians are forced to leave. 2 million Russians arrive. So now, from what I recall, Crimea has about 3 million population, but 2 million are Russian squatters. Thank you, Trilytic. In other words, Russian invaders who have stolen the homes of Ukrainians. So when anybody tries to say, oh, we should just do a poll, let's do a poll of the Crimeans and see where they want to live. Who do they want to be, Russian or Ukrainian? Thank you, Trilytic. The problem becomes they just kicked 2/3 of the people out of, or I would say 50% of the people were forced to leave. So 50% of the Ukrainian voters had to leave. And then the Russians brought in 2 million of their own voters. So any vote's going to be totally fake now. Just anyway, wasn't sure if you were getting at that, but figured I might as well give you up on that. All right. So people are saying, I'm going to look really quick on the 3D printers, 3D printing, what they're calling candy bombs, then send them out to have C4 loaded in them. Okay. I don't want to get into too many details because also gets a little scary when we start giving examples of how 3D printers are used for bombs. That is a discussion we don't want to have. But in any case, bottom line, it certainly sounds like, yes, the Ukrainians are using 3D printers and they're so crafty anyway. I wouldn't have been surprised. They're so good at this stuff. All right. Russian authorities in occupied regions of Ukraine are threatening to withhold high school diplomas from students who do not agree to sign up for Russian passports. Ukraine launched a new drone campaign to raise money to buy 10,000 drones. Within the first few hours of launching the campaign, they raised over $1 million, which is around 1 million euros. The German arms manufacturer Rhine Metal confirmed that it will deliver a Luna new generation reconnaissance drone system to Ukraine by the end of the year. This system, I Googled, can be used as a reconnaissance system. In other words, spying, seeing what's going on. It can provide an LTE network. So LTE networks are, cell phone network, or it can intercept or jam communications, which is also rather interesting. Interesting news, and also good news, but interesting. The German finance minister today arrived in Kyiv for his first official visit since the war started. I'm always intrigued when people like that arrive because probably the German finance minister isn't going to come to Ukraine just for fun, right? And he's not coming just for show. Thank you, Trilytic. He's not coming just for show. So the fact that he came hopefully means Germany is planning something more something more, which is good financially for Ukraine. And frankly, it's helpful anyway, because this kind of people-to-people diplomacy is really important. It's important for, sorry, my allergies, of course, going off. It's important for him to see what's going on in Ukraine, to visit sites like Bucha, et cetera, to really appreciate what happened, and to meet the Ukrainians one-on-one to establish trust. You meet Zelensky, you meet his finance minister, so you're able to get a sense, thank you, Trilytic, a read of the person yourself to see, do I trust this person? And hopefully you do, but those kind of person-to-person contacts are really important in politics. So very interesting. Tip. 2 angels are getting their wings. That's Angel 1, Angel 2. Hello, Angel. There we go. All right. I like to ban those trolls. I do. 2 more little stories here. Ukraine's going to receive a Norwegian anti-drone system worth $71 million as part of an initiative, as part of an initiative from the British Ministry of Defense. And finally, per CNN, the Russian ruble, their currency, hit a 17-month low against the dollar today, highlighting the growing, this is from CNN, highlighting the growing squeeze on Russia's economy from Western sanctions and a slump in export revenues. The Russian currency lost nearly 40% of its value this year, weakening past 100 rubles to the dollar. Yeah, it was going to around 107, 108, and then the Russian central bank jumped in. Thank you, Brock. And it went a little bit lower, but really interesting. I looked actually pre-war, and pre-war, I'm going to say, because I was looking at a graph, pre-war, the ruble was maybe like 75 to the dollar, 75 rubles for a dollar. Now then it plummeted when the war started. It came back and was even healthier, so to speak, because the Russian government was pumping so much money into the economy and support to try to keep the ruble going. And now it's going, and now you look at the chart, and for like 6 months, it's just been going down, 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 right? So it hasn't been, thank you, Cliff. It's been going down. Going to be very interesting because the ruble becoming weaker can help Russian exports potentially because it makes Russian goods cheaper. Anyway, I mean, we'll see, but it basically, it's a sign of problems in the Russian economy. And also the fact that it keeps going down looks like the Russian central bank is only able to do so much because they've been raising interest rates to try to make it more attractive. And, you look at that graph, it's still going down. So we'll see. All right, that's it for the news. Let me show you a couple of our auction items. So one of the things we do with the show in order to raise money for Ukraine and also support my work, because I do this for free and I do it full time and I'm not rich. So basically to help me with my salary, we do cool auctions of Ukrainian stuff that I find in Ukraine. People get me, people donate, etc. And we auction it off. And it's always cool stuff from Ukraine. I take 50% of the winning bid, basically the proceeds. 50% goes back to Ukraine, 50% goes to support me. And we've got a number of auction items. They're all on my Discord, by the way. So it's discord.aravosis.com. Discord's free. But they're all on the Discord, and the auctions end every Wednesday. So every Wednesday night or Thursday, I put new items up. We've got about 8 items right now. And why don't I show you? I'll show you several of them just to show you. So one, which I personally am a big fan of, is this. It's a Ukrainian Christmas ornament, but it's also a fridge magnet. And it says Happy Holidays on the bottom, I believe, and shows like 2 Ukrainian traditional garb, but as angels. And it's snowing, and there's the Christmas star above. But what I like, get it like this, what I like about these are they're Christmas ornaments. There's actually string hanging from them, but they're also refrigerator magnets, which is kind of fun. So you can put it on your fridge half the year or, 9 months. And then if you're me, your tree's up for 2 months. My tree goes up my tree goes up at Thanksgiving, and I leave it up until the end of January because I like to have it up. But anyway, that's very cute. A cool Ukrainian, the triad. I said the trizub, the trident. This is from Ukraine, actually. I mean, it's the Ukrainian symbol, but it's actually from Ukraine. You guys can see. Very nice, just very pretty, but from a Ukrainian small business. But I thought it was kind of cute. 2 more. This is a challenge coin, the military folks call it. These are not legal tender. They're made as collectibles and commemorating battles and things like this. This is commemorating the Ghost of Kiev. The Ghost of Kiev, depending who you talk to, is either, and on the back, there's the Ukrainian motherhood monument, which just became famous in the last week in a fighter jet because the motherhood or motherland monument is the one that they took the Soviet hammer and sickle off of, and they put the Ukrainian trident up instead. Really, this big, beautiful monument in Kyiv. So that's what it's. Anyway, it's both of those. But it's a really nice challenge coin that, again, I got from Ukraine. And finally, and then Cliff, I'll get to your question. And then finally, and this one I've got to be careful with because I keep being not careful enough. This is a beautiful necklace that one of our folks, one of you guys made, Wild Hunt Corsetry, Larissa, and I'm going to hold it in place. There we go. And it's made from a Ukrainian Easter egg. If you know how the Ukrainian Easter eggs are made with the batik method, it's a very old technique that goes back to like 800 or 700 AD. So it's about a 1300-year-old technique, and they use batik with wax and a stylus, and they paint the egg and then dip it into different colors, remove more wax, dip it again. And this, interestingly, is made from the egg that her mother made. Her mother, she's good at this stuff. She's Ukrainian American. Larissa's good, but Larissa's mom is insane. Yeah, Pisanka, right? The style of making the Easter eggs. Her mother, she showed me photos, makes the most ridiculously gorgeous Ukrainian Easter eggs. Again, they're Ukrainian family. This is one of her mother's Easter eggs that she made into the necklace. So, leather on the back. I've got nice pictures on the Discord. But anyway, we're auctioning this off. It's very nice. And like I said, I like it because it's neat. It's traditional Ukrainian, the design and everything, but also that she used one of the real Easter eggs is so cool, isn't it? And it's a beautiful egg. Yeah. Anyway, we have lots of other stuff. Those are 4 of them. Final point to tell you is our VIP members have access to both auctions. We've got auctions in 2 sections, 4 in each. One is public for everybody. One is VIP. VIP is for our paying members, which is our monthly memberships other than TikTok. And I'm going to tell you why. TikTok is currently broken for connecting to Discord. TikTok knows it. They've been trying to fix it. They haven't been successful. So right now, when you buy on TikTok, there's no way to connect it to Discord for you to access the VIP auction. Soon that will be fixed. But if you do Ko-fi, if you do YouTube memberships, Twitch memberships, Discord itself has a direct membership you can do. Any of those memberships, you'll be able to access the private auctions as well. All right, guys, enough of those. Let's jump in and do questions. So this is the part of the show we hang out. I answer you guys' questions. We talk about stuff. You pay on Patreon. Patreon. All right. So actually, what happened, I will tell you really quick, and then I'll get to Cliff's question. Patreon decided a few months ago many months ago, actually, that they were turning on us, on those of us who support Ukraine. Patreon doesn't like it. So Patreon threatened me and a bunch of other people to cut them off and told me that I had to disconnect Patreon from my Discord community, or they were going to basically kill my account. Thank you, Bonnie. So I had actually sent a message out to all of you guys on Patreon letting you know this, that you have a message from me in your inbox, believe it or not, but saying if you want to make because a lot of the people on Patreon just donate to donate. They don't want to get on Discord. I said, if you want to do a monthly donation, just to donate, keep it there. If you want access to the Discord community and stuff, you need to cancel Patreon and either go over to Ko-fi. You could just sign up on Patreon directly. There's a Patreon, excuse me. Stop saying Patreon. Cancel Patreon, go over to Discord. You can sign up on Ko-fi and link it to Discord. You can sign up on Discord itself, has its own membership that you can sign up there. Just make sure to use your computer, because if you use your phone, it's 30% more expensive because of Apple's fees. Thank you, Bonnie. So use your computer if you go over to sign up on Discord. Probably the easiest way is Discord, but use your computer. Any case, go over on Discord, and if you're confused about it, thank you, Jay. Go over and do a support ticket on Discord. Either write me a message or do a support ticket on Discord. Go over there, you look in the support section, say create a ticket, and mention it again, and Syndicate and I can help you figure it out. But you'll want to go over to either the Ko-fi or Discord. I would say are the 2 ways to do it. All right. Thank you. Hey, Jay, thank you for that again. But I wanted to mention that because I appreciate you doing that, and I wanted to make sure that we don't just have that thing lingering out there. No, thank you. Cliff says, since Russia is now Al-Qaeda, are they using IEDs and booby traps in areas they held? Actually, yes. The Russians, there have been some stories in the last few weeks of the Russians using children's toys and booby trapping them, right? Children's toys. We know for a fact, and we knew this from the beginning of the war, but there were stories again in recent weeks of the Russians taking the dead, check this out, the dead bodies of Russian troops and putting a bomb sort of in the bomb cavity or whatever, and then laying another dead body on top of them so nobody would notice. And I was reading an article of a reporter who had interviewed a Ukrainian sapper, I guess there's the word, the folks in the military who go and have to find mines and find bombs and defuse them. And the sapper said, we saw the bodies, we knew there was an explosion that killed them, but we looked and two of the bodies were lying on top of each other. And the explosion wouldn't have caused that. He goes, so we were very suspicious. He said, and thankfully we were careful. We used a device or whatever to move one body, and we saw they had booby trapped. He goes, and then the bomb went off and blew their bodies. You know, of course, horrific. But this is the kind of stuff the Russians do. Yeah. They booby trap their dead, and they booby trap children's toys. So yes, absolutely. It's terrible, but that's what they're doing. Yep. Yes, Dragon, update on the Kirch Bridge. I mentioned at the beginning of the show. The latest on that is there was at least one report today. I haven't seen more on it, but one report that did show satellite imagery, which made me trust it more, suggesting that the Kirch Bridge, that the railway, right, you've got two lanes of traffic, car, truck, and then a railway. We know two of the lanes of traffic are gone because it got damaged a few weeks ago. So there's now one, I'm always going to forget this damn word for the bridge, plank, whatever you call it, span. One span of the bridge still working, one lane of traffic one way, one the other, no trucks, which is good, meaning it limits what they can send. And then a rail link above, thank you, Bonnie, a rail link above going both ways. According to the satellite imagery today, it looked like the rail link was in trouble and was being fixed by the Russians, repaired, meaning it wasn't working. And if it's not working, it's not updating anything, which is good. Or, sending any supplies. So real quick, Annie, does the U.S. still have all of our diplomats, ambassador in Russia? We, along with everybody else, had removed a lot, and I'm pretty sure we must have opened up again when everybody else did. All the embassies opened up again eventually. So I don't know if everyone's there, but I would bet you we've got all of our folks there. We must. Thank you, Rick. We must have our ambassador and everybody there. I mean, we must. I don't really know the latest, but I know everyone had opened. It would be embarrassing if we hadn't opened up again. So we must have. But again, is it the full contingent? You know, then again, Kyiv has been, well, I say Kyiv is relatively safe. I mean, the problem is Kyiv gets hit every night and people do die. So when we say it's safe, we shouldn't be flippant. But, you know, your chances are pretty good in Kyiv because it's a city of, 2.5 million people. And, your chances are pretty good. But so that's what I know about that. Let me see. Do we know how much of the promised military equipment from the West, the world, has been delivered? Not really. For example, there was a report the other week from, I think, Bild, one of the German publications, claiming that, like 10% of the German promise had arrived, the weapons they promised. Then I've seen other reports that a lot of the German weapons have arrived. If our guys are being smart, and hopefully they are being smart, they're not publicizing everything, right? I don't need to know how many weapons have arrived. And the Russians certainly don't need to know, So I would hope that we're not saying. So we don't really know. I mean, we do know things like, the American tanks that we've been waiting for. We know they haven't arrived yet. We know some are expected to arrive next week. And not next week, next month. I'm sorry, next month. We know the F-16s are delayed because that's been in the American press. Thank you, Jaredy. Delayed for another year, actually, which kind of sucks. Thank you, Crazy Cat. So that's not good. But overall, I don't know that we know sort of the overall tally. We also, what Raz just asked, we also don't know, I think, how much is destroyed, how much is recycled, how much is fixed. Thank you, Down. Was it down to something? I can't see your whole name here. Oh, Down to Earth. Thank you. Again, I don't know that we know. There have been reports about specific things. Like, I don't remember offhand, but I know there were reports on the Leopard tanks and how many of them were destroyed. I don't know if it was 12 were destroyed or something. The ones that were damaged and could be repaired and either were sent out of the country or, to Poland or wherever they're going. So there have been reports but it's been on very specific weapon systems. They've got this has been damaged. But again, publicly, we're not going to want to make that public. We don't want the Germans to know how many how many weapon systems the Ukrainians have lost, or how many tanks or whatever. So yeah, I can't imagine it. You're very welcome, MP. Oh, that's interesting. Mike says Russians living in temporarily occupied Crimea have been told to keep their car full of gasoline shortages, petrol shortages expected in Crimea, according to the government. Now, from what I was seeing in the last couple of weeks, I was seeing people actually sort of reporting from Crimea and showing pictures of gas stations that didn't have gas. They didn't have gasoline. They didn't have petrol. So there's already shortages, which would be pretty cool. But we hope. We hope. Updates. There's no updates on the Wagner Group. I mean, not in the last few days. Last week, we were hearing. Actually, I don't think we know what's going on. Thank you, Dan. Last week, we got to the point where, Callum says they get the petrol via train mainly to Crimea. Okay, so Crimea, they're getting it mostly by train, but are they getting it from across the Crimean Bridge, or are they getting it like from train, you mean from the other occupied territories and then Russia? In other words, I'll show it on my map. Are they getting it by train going up here and across and then to Russia, or are they getting it by the train connection across the bridge? I wonder. From the Russia side, okay, so they're getting it coming up here, which again, guess what would cut off all the gasoline to Crimea if they're getting it by train through here? Ukraine successfully counteroffensive coming down to Melitopol, counteroffensive here coming down to Mariupol. Or Berdyansk, even, I should say, too. There's a possibility they're going to come down to Berdyansk instead. But any of those will cut the occupation in half, and that train line is now no longer supplying Russians in Crimea, with fuel, which is great. So I think Ukraine probably is. Yam says Ukraine should be sending special operations at night to sabotage Crimea. They probably are. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure they are. Thank you, Deemer. I'm sure they are. Should all the Crimean Bridge be totally destroyed to the ground? The question, John, is how to do it. No, there's two things. One is how to do it, because here's what I was reading. I was reading an interesting thing about this a few weeks ago, actually. Thank you, Paolo. That basically the bridge is a very strong type of bridge and a very cheap and easy type to put up. This is a 12-mile long bridge, so it's something like 16 kilometers or whatever, and the Russians were able to put it up in 3 years. So the concern is, if you take out one span of the bridge, like one chunk of the concrete, that I don't know if a span is 20 feet or 40 feet, so right, what would that be, 7 meters or 20 or 15 meters? I don't know, but it's not very large. If you take out one of those, it doesn't take them that long to put it. I mean, it does to put it up. If you take out 10 of those, that doesn't necessarily 60 feet. Okay. Callum says 60 feet. So that's 20 meters. If you take out 10 of those, I don't know that makes it 10 times harder for them to fix. Maybe they just fix 10 spans at the same speed they fix one span, because they just have 10 times as many work crew there, right? So the problem is actually destroying the bridge, meaning blowing it up where this thing cannot be replaced, I think would take a hell of a lot of weapons from what I'm reading. That's why Ukraine keeps going and taking out portions of it, and then the Russians have to rebuild it. It's, as I said, it's very easy for the Russians to rebuild, and they can do it in a relatively quick period of time, which may be why they're not sort of taking it all out. Are the columns already cracked? That's another question, because what people have said is, from the engineer types I read online, they feel it would do much more damage to the bridge and take a lot longer to fix, to actually hit the support beams underneath, the actual cement underneath that holds up the bridge. You damage that, and now you're in trouble. Now, from what folks were saying who know how to do such things, you would have to have an explosive right up against that support area. It'd be really nice to have, what do you call them? Like the special forces in the water. What do we call them? You'd want those guys there with a drill to drill into the cement and put the explosives in the cement, so that it really causes enough force to blow it up. Navy SEALs kind of types, right? To really blow it up. Can they get there? Is it safe? I mean, the Ukrainian version of the Navy SEALs. Can they get there? Is it safe? I don't know. But apparently this is why it's not necessarily so easy to blow it up And you've got to worry about, thank you, Bonnie, you've got to worry about doing enough damage that it's not easily repaired. Let me rephrase this. You don't want to use so many good weapons to damage something that can be repaired quickly. You might as well use few weapons, let it take a month to repair, then blow it up again, take a month to repair, right? But if you could blow up the entire thing, even better, right? A demolition team would be nice, but I don't know that they can get one that close. Mini sub with seals, who knows? Be cool if they could. Yeah, the dam buster bombs are interesting. The only thing is they've still got to kind of go do it and go down or whatever, honestly, I think they just keep hitting it. Yeah, they just keep hitting it and taking it out, big vertical cracks on the columns. I thought some pictures did show some cracks the first time, Lukashenko, nothing on him right now. Lukashenko is the dictator of Belarus, which is country northwest of Ukraine. Show you on the map. Belarus is up here, big friend of Putin. Hasn't entered the war officially, but he's still helping Putin in the war, right? So they let the Russians go through their territory to invade Ukraine. No real news on that. I mean, the Lukashenko news has been the Wagner news, but there isn't anything new, meaning the Wagner group were the mercenaries that tried to overthrow Putin. As part of the deal to end their rebellion, they agreed to move their leader, Prigozhin, and some of their troops to Belarus. The question now is, we get the sense something isn't working with the deal, whether Putin reneged on it, whether Belarus is reneging in part, because the Wagner guys are mercenaries. They expect to be paid. Otherwise, they're not going to hang out. They can't afford to not be paid. They're not rich. And Putin isn't paying them, we hear. It's not clear that the Lukashenko, the Belarusians are paying them. So a number of them may have already left because they're not getting paid, from what we hear. And there's the issue of them acting up and doing, thank you, Lisa, and doing their exercises and other things, military exercises on the border with Poland and up there closer to Lithuania, trying to basically freak out the Lithuanians and the Poles. The problem with that is you're not freaking, actually, let me rephrase this. Possibly trying to freak out the Lithuanians and the Poles. The problem is you're not freaking out the Poles, you're pissing off the Poles, and there's a big difference. Poland can probably kick Russia's butt at this point. They certainly can kick Belarus's butt. Poland is a member of NATO. Anything happens to Poland, NATO gets involved anyway. So Belarus is not invading Poland anytime soon, or Lithuania for that matter, because they'd immediately be at war with the United States, with Great Britain, with the French, the Germans, the Norwegians, everybody. So the Finns, importantly, right? So that's not going to happen. What I wonder, though, is whether all of the borders, all the crazy stuff they're doing near the border in Belarus to try to scare the Poles and scare for example, the Poles have had to move 10,000 troops now to their border just to be safe. The Belarusians don't try something stupid. That's meant to scare. I think it's meant to scare Biden. I think it's meant for Biden because we know somebody's advising Biden. We think it's the National Security Advisor. We think it's the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the senior most U.S. military. What do you want to say? Uniformed military, right? So senior most general. Thank you, Gino. And clearly they're giving Biden advice to be scared of Putin and to be worried. Thank you, Bonnie. And basically saying, this can get out of control. Who knows? And I think they're doing this in Poland and Lithuania, or on the border there, just to scare Biden. Biden's looking and going, or his advisors are looking and going, oh my God, the Poles are now moving, 10,000 troops. Thank you, Hedge, for that. The Hydra slime. That, oh my God, the Poles are moving 10,000 troops to the Belarusian border. This is dangerous. One mistake and we're at war. They're trying to freak out Biden's advisors and thus Biden into thinking this is just getting too tense. We need to, right? We can't give Ukraine the missiles they want now. We can't give them the fighter jets they want. Look at how tense things are already getting. So it's not to piss off Poland in the end, because piss off Poland is like pissing off a Rottweiler, or pissing off a pit bull. You die. And Belarus knows it and Putin knows it. You don't piss off Poland. You just don't. They've got too good of a military. And the Poles are dying to kick the Russians' butt. That's the thing. The Poles are not like reticent about this. If anything, we've probably held the Poles back, I'm sure. I will bet we've held the Poles back. Good night, Rob and Dave. Right? So, anyway. I do not talk about the Maui fire because this is a Ukraine chat. My president, however, has already allocated money to the fire in Maui, and Maui, and he will be allocating more. Americans have this amazing ability called multitasking. We're able to care about two things at once. So I care about Hawaii and I care about Ukraine. There you go. We have a Russian troll who's very upset. Actually, Russian troll trying to claim that if the Poles will collapse in 2 days if we attack them. You and what army, Russian troll? Seriously, it's taking you, I'm sorry, how many days? Let me check. 536 days for Russia not to beat Ukraine, by the way. You're still not winning the war there, Russia, and it's been 536 days. And you think you're going to take on Poland too? Good luck with that. That ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. Exactly. Like Justin said, I'd love for the Poles to get involved. Nothing would make us happier than for Poland to get involved and prove you wrong, bucko. Or Bucksky. Marion is in Denver. Oh, Marion's done with France. Sad. Hello, Marion in Denver. Anyway, what else we got, guys? Any more questions? Anything? Poland has the strongest army in Europe at the minute. Poland's got. Oh, hey, Yulia. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Poland, but that's why it makes me think that all the BS going on in Belarus with Wagner and Lukashenko trying to scare Poland and stuff, and Lithuania. I think they're doing it to freak out Biden. Because Poland's like, right? Poland's like, I'm in, right? Poland's not afraid of what they're doing. It's to make Biden, it's to make the National Security Advisor and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs go, oh, things are getting so tense at the border with Poland and Belarus. Maybe we shouldn't give Ukraine those ATACMS weapons. Maybe we shouldn't give them the fighter jets. We don't want to inflame things even more. I think that's exactly what's going on, you know? Oh, you are going finally. Oh, good for you. Excellent. Excellent. We have to talk about that because I've been wanting to go, but I've been nervous about going too, so I missed a couple opportunities already. Nicola, it is very different on YouTube than TikTok. Yes, YouTube is a quieter. TikTok's more, and we have way more trolls on TikTok. This is true too. Anyway, what else is going? What else is going, guys? Any more questions, guys? What do you think? We can possibly try to do a little Discord tonight. I don't want to go too long. Oh, absolutely. Bring me stuff we can auction, Julia. Although I like souvenirs. I am not beyond keeping a nice souvenir, as Vlad will tell you. Vlad sends stuff, and occasionally I'm like, Vlad, I'm keeping for auction. I'm like, Vlad, I'm keeping that. And he goes, I know. I knew you would. Or actually what Vlad does now, he gets me like stuff to auction and then an extra one for me to keep, which I'm like, perfect. Thank you. But I've got actually all the cool stuff I was worried about just got through customs and is arriving at my place. So I have a cornucopia of cool stuff that we'll be auctioning off when I get back to DC. The coolest stuff you've ever seen for our auctions. I already warned Mustard about it. We've got to warn Crusher too. Save your money, boys. Okay, sure. People like shirts. I'd say get larges or larger. People tend to, I find like the mediums people don't want as much, which I was surprised because I'm more of a medium if it fits correctly. But people seem to want larges, extra Americans with their larges and their extra larges, their double XLs. The YouTube crowd is nicer and more friendly. The TikTok crowd is quite friendly when you get beyond the trolls. Like right now, the trolls are pretty much done on TikTok. So now it's the fun crowd. It's sort of like, it's almost like, going late into the evening. We're the late night crowd now. This is the after party. TikTok's the after party now. So now it's like the normal people, nice pace, right? And the crazies. I don't think the crazies are here. I'm not sure. You've been to DC before? Real cool place. Your uncle was in the Navy. Oh, cool. DC, I would say the official U.S. government part of DC, the federal government part's really cool. I really enjoy the museums are nice because we've got in Washington, all the federal museums are free. The Smithsonian, which you don't appreciate until you move to a different city, and then they cost you $25 a museum, and you go, oh my God. So that's something I will say I appreciate about Washington. All of our federal museums are free. So the zoo is free. I go to the zoo literally 2-3 times a year I go to the zoo in DC because I live like 15 minutes away. A 15-minute walk to the zoo. So I literally, it was just kind of cool actually. I'm able to walk to the zoo a couple times a year and it's free. So you just walk in, take my camera, see the animals, it's nice. British museums are free. I didn't know that. And full of stolen stuff from around the world. Exactly. Rather than paying to see it in Egypt and Greece, you can, for free, see all the stolen stuff in London. Cliff Wolf, Cliff says he's seeing more stupid stories circulating about how F-16s won't be right for Ukraine. Yeah, the thing is, exactly, there's enough people who think, I don't know. First of all, the Ukrainians aren't stupid. Their generals seem to think F-16s are what they need. And what we have seen at this point is the Ukrainians have always been right. I can't think of anything really the Ukrainians have said, oh, we really need something, and they've gotten it, and it's been like, right? I mean, they've been right every step of the way. So yeah, I'm not surprised they're poo-pooing it, but yes, I am beaming in from Chicago this week. Actually, this month. I just got here. When I come, I like to stay a month to see my mom. So I always work from here, and we're in Mom's house, which is a very nice house in spite of the 1970s paneling. But actually, I like the 1970s paneling. It's very warm. So it's kind of funny. It's old and dated, but it's warm, which I like, so yes, you'll always know I'm at Mom's when I've got the 70s paneling. I know the Ukrainians getting A-10s, although I think from what we've heard, so the A-10s is called the Warthog, I believe. And it's a low, slow moving plane that is used to blow up things like tanks, from what I'm told, from what I remember, actually, from the wars in Iraq. The only thing is, because they're slow, they need protection. And I don't know if just F-16s are used to protect them, but you need to protect them too. So it needs to be part of a whole, system to give them those. But no, it's too bad we really didn't help the Ukrainians in terms of more of the sort of air support they need. Because actually, one thing that's really important too, guys, at the beginning of the war, Ukrainians were like, give us MiGs, which they've got already, the MiG-29s or whatever. And remember, I've raised this before. We've got to find out when the article was from. I think the article was from the end of March, probably. There was an article, remember, the big story came out that Poland was going to give Ukraine something like 200 MiG fighter jets or something that it had. And they wanted to do it we talked about this last week, via Germany, via US base in Germany, Ramstein or whatever. And the Americans went, and the Germans went, and nobody would do it. And basically the Americans were, literally the Americans were afraid to have it come from them. Supposedly we said, oh, if this is the best part, if Poland wants to do it, Poland can do it. And we're like, what are you, 2 years old? Or 13? Like, I'm not going to do it, but if you want to do it. So the planes allegedly never got there, which is absolutely ridiculous. And these were like MiG fighter jets that they already fly. And they're a little different, but they're so not very different that they said the Ukrainians would have no problem adapting to them. And we didn't even give them those. So give me a break on the, F-16s won't work kind of thing. Our problem isn't the F-16s not working for the Ukrainians. Our problem isn't the maintenance. Our problem is we don't want to give them F-16s in the same ways we don't want to give them the ATACMS missiles. We just don't want to. We don't want to help them because we're afraid it's going to piss off Putin. I really do. I think the excuses have changed too much for it to be something legitimate. Now, Otan Bhat, who always has an interesting perspective, says, AI-generated summary. Okay, here's the AI-generated summary. The provision of F-16s to Ukraine will strain Russia's aircraft resources. Due to overuse in the ongoing conflict, Russia is experiencing accelerated aircraft wear, equivalent to losing 27 to 57 planes. This forces Russia to invest more in replacements and maintenance, adding to their logistical and financial challenges. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Thank you, Nate, for the butterfly. I did see it. I was in the middle of reading. Apologize for that. And the heart, too. Thank you. Interesting. Well, that's the interesting question. Kelly says, I think they did get there in pieces IKEA style. That was the story that was out there a few months ago, was that basically Poland, and maybe the US finally approved of this, surreptitiously, thank you, Lori, surreptitiously disassembled the the MiG-29s that it had, the fighter jets, shipped them to Ukraine and basically claimed they were spare parts, but they weren't spare parts. They were basically, IKEA. Thank you, Nate. They were IKEA style MiG fighter jets that they simply disassembled and put them back together, which is very interesting. But I had read that same story. Now, and Poland maybe did, because in the end, the U.S. said Poland's free to send them if they want to. And the Poles were a little bit nervous about doing it by themselves. But if I were Poland, you're right. Poland goes, okay, we'll do it secretly. You said we could. Don't tell us now. Don't tell us no now. So hope they did. Hope they did send it. What else, guys? Can the underwater drones damage the bridge if a few hit all at the same time? I don't know about that. Explosives experts, Callum, from what we know of the Ukrainian drones, they've got enough that the drone itself could do sufficient damage to the support beam. Sorry, Callum says yes, but I want to see what sort of a more detailed yes. Would they need several? Would they have one? I mean, now, of course, the problem is you got to get the drone there, which, they've had some success, maybe not, some success, some not success, depending. We don't really know sort of what's hit and what hasn't. Sorry, just looking at what people are saying here. All right, good night, Susan. Good to see you. Hope you're feeling well still. Somebody actually asked me the other day how you were doing. I said, ask Susan how she's doing. I'm worried about her and the horse. I was like, oh, that was sweet. They actually remembered you. So hope you've been improving. Is Poland going to jump in? Patrick, I think, the U.S. is certainly holding Poland back like like an angry pit bull. And not to denigrate Poland, but I mean, because Poland knows they can kick Russia's butt. My suspicion is the other NATO, thank you, Royce. The other NATO allies are holding Poland back sufficiently, going, don't get involved. It just, because it does run the risk of the rest of us having to get involved. So I think they're holding back. You are seeing Poland, though, put 10,000 troops now on their border with Belarus, basically saying, don't screw around it. Because Belarus, they flew two attack helicopters inside Poland, like 2 miles deep, which is like 3 kilometers. And my guess is Poland as well probably has moved enough systems to the border where they're saying the next time any Belarusian helicopters come in, we're blowing them out of the sky. I will guarantee you Poland, assuming they can. I mean, hopefully they've got the capacity. But if they do, I'm sure they told the Belarusians, next time you pull that stunt, thank you, Pam, for the lightning. Next time you pull that stunt, we're blowing you guys out of the air. Will the war adversely affect Crimea's tourism industry? It reportedly already has. There was a story, Gregory, a week or two ago, that the accommodations are at 50% empty. Two different 50%. One, like new bookings or whatever, are down 50%. Thank you, Sean, for the dinosaur. The other is that the actual capacity of the hotels and stuff is only at 50%. So because people are kind of afraid of going right now. Let's see if it keeps up. Let's see if it keeps up. Oh, we'd be happy to. So we've got a troll saying Russia's too powerful. America doesn't want to mess with Russia. Oh, honey. Poland could beat you. America? I mean, again, keep in mind too, it's not just America. It's America. It's the United Kingdom. It's France. It's Germany. It's Norway. It's Finland. I mean, Finland alone. Finland, 70 years ago, Finland kicked Russia's butt. 70 years ago. Okay. Imagine what they can do today. You've got, like I said, the Baltic states are feisty amongst themselves. There's the Russians. The thing is, no one's afraid of Russia. Russia's got nukes. If Russia didn't have nukes, Russia would be in a very sad place. Russia is a sad place, but they would be in a very sad place right now if they didn't have nuclear weapons, because we would all be collectively kicking their butts out of Ukraine. Russia would be Serbia. No offense, Serbia, but Russia would be Serbia, where they got warned, they effed around and they found out 20 years ago. And Russia would be saying the same thing right now. No one's afraid of Russia. Russia, as John McCain famously said, Russia is a gas station with nukes. They've got oil and natural gas, and they've got nuclear weapons. And if they didn't have the nuclear weapons, they'd be somebody else's oil and natural gas at this point. So yeah, I hope to God you guys don't actually believe people are afraid. No, because they're worried about your nukes, and they're worried that you're kind of goofy, but no one's actually afraid of Russia. Please. No. and then I banned them. But it was worth responding because I think getting those facts out there, I think, are important. That's why occasionally I respond to the trolls, because I think like the talking points are useful in general for you guys to have, like what the argument is, you know. Vladimir Putin hasn't been around too much lately, has he? Yeah. You know, who gave up neutrality? We're not neutral. What do you mean? What else? Anything else, guys? What do you think? Otherwise, we're going to go soon because I got to get some dinner. I'm at Mom's where my food gets off a little more. I'm usually sort of hungrier here. Poland is on a spending spree regarding tanks and weapons purchases. Yep. Anything else, guys? Just looking here. Otherwise, I'll do a quick summary and we'll be gone. I did, Otan. Yeah, Otan Bot was talking about the bridge the Turkish boat that the Russians stopped and inspected yesterday. I did. Basically was saying that it looks like the Russians don't really have the capacity to really enforce an embargo of Ukraine. And I think they may not want to. I think they may not want to blow up any ships. I think they may be afraid of what NATO's going to do. That's my suspicion. You know, if they blow up, if Russia blows up commercial ships, NATO gets involved and starts doing what is happening in the Persian Gulf, where, you know, America starts to escort the vessels. So I think, I mean, having said that, I'm not convinced Biden's got the backbone to do that. But if I were Russia, I can't promise you he wouldn't. You know, if Russia starts blowing up ships, I mean, Russia starts blowing up commercial ships, anything can happen. You could have Turkey, you could have a lot of countries going, you know, so who knows? But yeah, I did. All right, guys, let me do a quick summary, and then I'm going to get going. Maybe tomorrow we can do Discord since it's already 1:15, and I'm getting awfully hungry. Pull up my notes. I will do the quick summary, and then we will go. Well, NATO can do lots of shit if NATO wants to do shit, but the wanting to do it is the problem. That's the big dilemma. You know, because NATO is, I mean, my God. I mean, the thing is, NATO could wipe the ground with Russia as far as that goes. I mean, that's not even a question. But Russia's got the nukes, and Russia has sufficiently convinced people that they're crazy enough to use their nukes. I mean, that's the irony here, actually, if it really comes down to it. The only reason Russia gets away, it's kind of funny, actually. The only reason Russia gets away with what it gets away with, the only reason people, you know, fear Russia is because they think Russia's kind of crazy. They worry that the government doesn't think like a normal advanced government, and that they actually would use their nukes for doing stupid things, even though they know they'd lose. So, I mean, it's not really a compliment that countries are afraid of Russia. They're afraid of Russia because they think Russia hasn't really fully become a mature country. You know, a sort of, I'm sure what word to use here, and certainly not democracy, but you know what I mean? That just the government's a little goofy. It's not a compliment. It really isn't. You know, anyway, let me give you the quick summary. So it's day 536 of Putin's 3-day war. Thank you, Kanausi. Russian weapons are beginning to show their effectiveness in Ukraine, according to the defense minister of Russia, which made me laugh because we're a year and a half into the war, and he's now saying Russian weapons are beginning to show their effectiveness. The Kirch Bridge update reports saying that the satellite photos are showing the railway portion of the bridge is out of operation and being repaired. Hopefully that's true. Overall, Ukraine is making tactically significant advances in Western Zaporizhia and the counteroffensive there, according to the Institute for the Study of War. According to the Russian military bloggers, Ukraine is also making some advances in the eastern part of the counteroffensive by Donetsk, and that has the Russians very worried as well. Bakhmut, Russia's failed to regain lost positions in the last day or two. Russia stopped a Turkish ship. Thank you. Who was that? Adam. Russia stopped a Turkish cargo ship that was heading towards the port of Ismail in Ukraine to basically board it and cause hell. What the Russians are trying to do is scare shipping away from Ukraine. So they boarded it, inspected it, and then let it go. Russia's been having a lot of bombers interfere. See, I have a good night, Callum. And Dawn, thank you that's like the Barbie dream car. Everything's going to be Barbie lately. That's very Barbie themed, whether it's intentional or not. Thank you for that. Russia's been flying a lot of bombers close to NATO territory. Again, just trying to scare people. They're not going to do anything. Russian authorities in occupied regions of Ukraine are threatening to withhold high school diplomas from students who do not agree to accept Russian passports. Ukrainian drone funding campaign that the Ukrainian government launched within the first 4 hours got $1 million or 1 million euros in funds. The German's army manufacturer confirmed that it will deliver a Luna new generation reconnaissance drone system to Ukraine by the end of the year. It's a system that can be used for reconnaissance, providing an LTE network for cell phones or intercept or jam communications. The German finance minister arrived in Kyiv today for talks. That's good news. Ukraine is going to receive a Norwegian anti-drone system. Thank you, Hazel, for the TikTok gift. Very sweet of you. And per CNN, the ruble hit a 17-month low against the dollar today, highlighting the growing squeeze on Russia's economy from Western sanctions and the slump in export revenues. Ha! All right, guys, I'm going to head out. Thank you for joining us as always. Thank you for the gifts. I could tell you were particularly generous today. Very much appreciate it. And thank you, mods, for going after the trolls as always. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. I mean, I check in the Discord. I'm just not going to go Discord and sort of hold court right now because I've got to go eat. I'm starving. But I always check in Discord throughout the day. So anybody has questions, I'm always answering questions on Discord. Thank you, Hazel. I am also, if you've got problems, like we said, with sort of making the system work, the connections, thank you, Tugas and Luff. I'm happy to help you with that too. If you file file a ticket or whatever they call it, support ticket. But otherwise, always happy to answer questions. Join us. We're, hanging out. It's discord.aravosis.com. It's free. But as I said, you can get the membership and join us for some of the VIP stuff. Oh, the VIP thing also includes a show on Saturday mornings that I do just for the paid subscribers as a thank you. Didn't do it this weekend because I was flying, but we will do it next Saturday. Actually, you know what, too? And next Sunday, if I remember, we'll do the hangout for the $25 subscribers because I haven't done that in a while and I should have. $25 a month, folks. You know who you are. And that's just on Discord. All right, guys. Thank you so much. See you all tomorrow. And welcome to Chicago, I guess, so to speak. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.